The 3764 Elvis Presley Boulevard. Hit it, Elvis. You got me.
All right, so we've got Joseph Scott here with us, lifelong North Alabama resident, Huntsville. Tell us a little bit about growing up around here.
Grew up in the Huntsville area, probably, born in Decatur, just south of here, but moved to Huntsville probably when I was about 4 years old. Went to elementary school here, all around this area.
I find that everybody that I talk to, our good friend and your good friend, Benny Jacks, who we just love her dearly.
Absolutely.
Everybody, it seems like that I talk to about Huntsville just loves being here.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Oh yes, it's a great place because you have so much, from NASA being here to the military base being here. So much of a friendly community, now it's grown a lot in the last 50 years, but just a great place to live.
Well, that kind of leads me right into what you're here to talk about. It leads me into 1975. Like I told you, Michael and I just came here back in May, and we did a full documentation of the building in there, and heard a lot of stories. And when we left, I told Benny, I said, look, it seems like there's more to be told. There's more stories. She said, oh yeah. And she said, we'll find them, and maybe we can get together again one day and do it. And so that is what led us to come back here and to sit here in the conference room at the VBC and talk to folks like you, and talking about how much everybody enjoys being here. Now, it appeared by listening to those shows and watching the film of Elvis on stage in 75 here, that he liked being here as well, because he was here for the 5 shows.
It's true.
And you were at one of them. So without me talking too much more, I want you to talk, and then after that, I want you to share your pen.
Yes, sir. So growing up, my mom and dad, huge Elvis fans, had all the records. I listened to them as a kid. Growing up, I was a music fan. More than, I guess I have found out the older I get, I think I was a little more of a music fan than I even thought. So fast forward a few years, I'm 6 years old. My mom worked here at the Braun Center. Right after they opened, she was hired as the switchboard operator here. Her office was right outside a gentleman named Cliff, right outside his office, who was the director. So as you can imagine, when artists and when events would come to the Braun Center, my mother, being there kind of as the switchboard operator, she heard a lot of stuff. She heard who was coming, who was scheduled to come, when their dress rehearsals were, when they were doing sound check. Okay, so long, whatever time in 75, because like I said, I was a little squirt, here comes the Elvis. He's going to be at the show. And so, but again, my mom and dad being huge fans, somehow my mother snagged some tickets. And a lot of times I would come up to work with her, and sit in her office and play with my Hot Wheels or whatever. So I remember this day very vividly. Mother said, we're going over to the Hilton. The Hilton was right across the street there. There's a hotel there now, but it's not the Hilton. And somehow, from her inside track, she knew when Elvis was going to be there and when he was going to leave to come over to do one of his sound checks. And so here's the part I remember. We're in the lobby, and to the best of my recollection, I would say there was probably 20 or 30 people. So it's not like all of Huntsville knew that he was about to enter the lobby, but there were a few people that were there. I'm standing in the middle. My mom is to my left. My Aunt Sue is to my right. And we were probably 10, 15 yards from the elevator. And it was almost like one of those hallelujah chorus moments.
Right.
I mean, I could literally, and it was like it was in slow motion. The elevator doors opened, and the first 2 guys that came out were Alabama State Troopers. And they had on those Smokey the Bear looking hats, pressed uniforms. They came out, and then Elvis and his entourage. I don't remember, 3 or 4 guys with him. I don't remember who they were. I'm sure it was Red. Came out of the elevator doors. He looks over at us and kind of waves, and instantaneously, my Aunt Sue runs over to him, hugs his neck, probably got a kiss on the cheek, I don't know. My mother bends down to eye level with me and says, "Look, son, there's Elvis," and made sure that I saw him. And I remember that day. Since then, I have asked Mother many times, "Mother, what were you thinking? Why didn't you run over and get a hug from Elvis?" And I said, "Once in a lifetime opportunity." And she said, "Well, son," she said, "I wanted to make sure you saw him." And I thought, okay, that's pretty special. Love of a mother for her son. I'm an only child.
Right.
So, and then just the next night, a couple of nights later, I wish I could remember the exact time frame, but just within a night or two, we got to go to the concert. Unbelievable concert. Me being a 6-year-old kid and growing up listening to Elvis music and hearing the passion my mom and dad had for him, the cape. That's the parts I remember. He was slim, trim, looking good.
Right.
He was one of those guys that the ladies wanted to be with him and the guys wanted to be his friend. I mean, it was just so unbelievable. But we were getting ready to come over to do this interview with you today. It dawned on me that I had an item up in my attic that I have kept all these years. I just turned 55 a few weeks ago. And so it was unbelievable that I still had this. But the night that my mom and dad brought me to the concert, solid metal front and back is the button as a souvenir. I don't remember what else I probably got, some kind of a book or a fan magazine or something that night, but who knows where it ended up. But all those years I have kept that, 49 years, I've still got the button. So pretty cool.
That is cool.
Pretty cool.
And Joseph, I wanted to talk to you a little bit because, like we were talking about before the interview started, we were talking about how it's so important to create these time capsules. We just talked to Cosette just a minute ago, and she was telling us stories from back in the 50s, and then you're sharing a story, in the 70s. And so, what I wanted to touch on to make it part of this time capsule is, it appears, and you would know because you've lived here your whole life, it appears that there was such an impact by Elvis's coming to this town. I mean, literally, I don't live here, and you can almost feel it. Like it's almost like you can reach out and touch that. There's something happened when that guy came into this town, and I'm not really sure what it is, but maybe you could share with me a little bit. What you think.
Being so small, I didn't remember a lot, but I was asking Benny before this interview, and she said, he played I think 5 shows in '75, and then 2 or 3 shows in '76. But you're right. I mean, for us to still be talking about it 50 years later.
I think that's the point that I was trying to make, is like, you all are still talking about it.
I mean, in the impact and I heard Sam telling the story about the newspaper article. I don't want to steal any thunder, but the Holiday on Ice that was coming. I don't know if somebody has shared that story yet. The Colonel and Elvis took out the ad. I didn't know that story. So, and you're out there reminiscing with some of the other folks that are going to be in this interview, and Benny, it starts to jog your memory on things that you had forgotten about. And only an iconic figure that was so loved like Elvis would cause you to remember that. You remember times if you met the president. You remember times if you met these music or movie stars or iconic figures, but on the way over here to get in the mood, I had Elvis on XM listening to it. And my wife said, "You trying to get in the mood?" I said, "Yeah, because I still love his music. Yeah. I love the stories about Elvis."
Well, we were just talking to Cosette a little while ago, and she's in her 80s, and we're sitting here talking about the youth that's coming on nowadays. I mean, my son's 23, but we're talking to people that are 14 and 15 years old that are coming on that are just crazy about Elvis. And we, like I was telling you, we go into all these cities, and we go to, not only do we do the venues that he performed at, we go to the hotels and any other thing that that we can find that he touched while I was there. And it's literally, we've had this talk so many times on airplanes and in the car or whatever as we're traveling, where I say, like any other entertainer, they come in and it's sort of like it's electrifying when they come. when Elvis came, it's like a tidal wave. It's totally different.
Absolutely.
It's like the energy you feel when you hear that, your favorite person is coming to town. Well, that's electrifying. But it seems like it goes away maybe a couple days after they've left town. But here we are 50 years. Next year will be 50 years. And I don't know if you saw this, but
Oh, wow.
so they're doing the 50-year, well, you know this, they're doing a 50-year anniversary next year for the BBC. And I was asking what this is, and it's basically they're allowing citizens of Huntsville to come in and write their favorite thoughts
Share
about
their
this
memory.
building.
How about
and
that?
then they put it up there, and Elvis, he's all over this. You see Disney on Ice.
Yeah, Monster Jam, Elvis Presley,
There we
several
go.
of them.
There we
Well,
go.
I was here just a few weeks ago to see Leanne Morgan, a stand-up comedian, and I just had a moment. Before I knew I was going to do this interview, before I was thinking anything about this, I had a moment when she was on stage. She may have told a joke about Elvis, I don't remember. But I had a flashback, seriously, of thinking about that, 49 years ago, I saw Elvis perform on that stage, and I still remember it. We were to his left up in the box seats. Because like I said, my mom worked here. I don't know how she made it happen, but she had really good seats for us. And it was just one of those nights that's kind of like a life-changing.
Yeah.
You hear some music artists say, well, my life changed the night I saw Elvis, or the first time I heard the Beatles, or the first time I saw the Rolling Stones, whoever their kind of moment was, and that etched my career in the music world. And so it didn't for me. I didn't become a musical artist, but I've done impersonations. I've done at parties. I've dressed up like him. Years ago, my mom, right out of high school, she made a jumpsuit for me and for Halloween one year. Well, that turned into me performing at a church group, which turned into me doing some other little fun things.
Right.
And so people sometimes still come to me and say, hey, you remember when you used to be Elvis? I did it. I worked at Walmart and I dressed up like Elvis. So,
Well, I tell you what, wear that, and I'm sure I don't have to convince you, but wear that like a badge of honor that you got to see him, because we see hundreds of people all the time that have never seen it.
How about that?
And when we interview the ones that have, it's the same story. It's that electrifying, that magnetism.
never forget it. It really is. So, well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I appreciate you coming down here and taking time out of your Saturday to come down and talk to us, and it's been a real pleasure talking
Absolutely.
to you.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you and
Appreciate
your
it.
son.
Yes, sir.